Porsche just issued massive warnings to the entire car industry. They've realized going for pure electric was going to be one of the biggest mistakes if they were to stay in business and continue competing in the luxury car segment. What they've seen in China now, unfortunately, is the average transaction price has gone down by as much as 29%, with competitors like BYD and a lot of the other OEMs that are producing electric vehicles are doing them on the cheap. How does Mercedes, BMW, and Porsche compete with that? Well, they can't right now. As a matter of fact, all they know is they can compete with the internal combustion manufactured vehicles, and Porsche has announced that they're going to retract on the output of a lot of these EVs. That's right, the sales of their electric vehicles have been dismal, to say the least, and Porsche this week has actually announced that they're going to halt the production, or at least extend the production of their internal combustion engine. Upon the back of this, they saw a 7% falling off a cliff in terms of their stock prices. But Porsche also realized that they had no margins. The margins were gone. Trying to create vehicles like the Taycan and the Macan Electric, they were not selling these vehicles. And the few that did go out the door, they were highly incentivized because nobody wanted to buy an electric Porsche. Sure, while they're fun, and many could argue that I've driven Taycans, and they were some of the most blistering, best performing electric vehicles on the market, and truly true to the brand's mantra, but unfortunately, the real loyalists just wanted no part of it. Well, there was always somebody with a little extra cash. They wanted to try a new Porsche that was maybe electric powered. The vast majority of buyers are going to look at a 911 or a Cayman Turbo or a Cayenne Turbo or something that actually had a little bit of flair and pizzazz. But unfortunately, earlier, a year or 2 years ago, Porsche announced that they were going to go pure EV with the Macan. Of course, that fell on its face when this year they announced that, you know what, we better retract. We better put an internal combustion engine option in there as well. As well, this year, they were promoting the fact that they were going to convert 100% the 718, the Boxster, and the Cayman were going to be exclusively electric for next year. Well, now they've repealed that, and they said, you know what, no, we're getting too hasty. We have to continue extending. We know what people want, and we know what buyers are looking for. But we've also seen a lot of sales in the electric vehicle market fall off too in Tesla. Tesla's been offering lots of incentives. Almost every manufacturer now that is looking to try to continue selling electric vehicles is having to make concessions, big incentives. We're seeing incentives. I talk about it this week about some of the most incentivized vehicles. Ford Mustang Mach-E, F-150 Lightning, they're all heavily incentivized to move them out the door. But Porsche has realized their profit margins are virtually in the toilet trying to sell EVs. They've gone from a 7 to 10% profit margin on every vehicle down to 1.5%, maybe 2% per vehicle. They're almost losing money on the sale of every one of their electric vehicles. What makes matters worse is on the Chinese market, with the average transaction price dropping down by as much as 29%, it's clear indication that they're not competing with that market. The Chinese are creating vehicles that are more affordable, more easily accessed by the vast majority of the population. And Porsche is producing high power, high performance engines, or drivetrains, if you will, on their ICE side. But when it comes to the EVs, people don't really find a way to justify that. Spending $150,000, $180,000 on an electric vehicle just does not resonate with most Porsche enthusiasts and loyalists. As a result, Porsche has looked at this and said, well, the EU7 regulations as of 2035 is stating that they're going to have to be essentially zero emissions. The downside with that, of course, is what do they do until that time? Of course, they're looking at what they have today and how do we get to that point? We know the VAG group, Porsche, Volkswagen, Audi group is all part of that same entourage, and they've all felt the burn. You know, the Audi e-trons, not sellers. And even on the secondary market, they're falling apart. They're losing as much as 30-40% in a year. Same thing with Mercedes-Benz. The EQE, EQS class vehicles, off a cliff. Nobody wants them. The G-Wagon, nobody wants them. They're sitting. And a lot of these, I mean, you get on there and there's all kinds of social media experts that are trying to promote Mercedes-Benz. And, oh, look at this. We have this great G-Wagon. I can't understand why it's not selling. These are amazing. Look at this. And they show you through the quilted stitching and all the great interior finishing. But what they're not doing is cutting to the heart of the problem. Expensive vehicles and electric. And we already know electric vehicles, while they have a purpose, shorter commutes, for say people that need to get around in the cities and just need short trips to work, it works. But when you're dealing with a lot of the northern states, when you're dealing with a lot of European countries and Canada, for example, where you have much longer spaces between cities, it's becoming a problem. You need range, you need weather to cooperate because cold weather takes an impact, and none of this meets the objective for a lot of these electric vehicles. Porsche realizes that the 911 has sold because it hasn't changed that much over the years. It was small incremental changes. But all of a sudden, they were willing to sacrifice the Cayman, the Boxster, and the 918s or 718s because they knew that, you know what, that's not the legendary car. If Porsche went pure electric on the 911, that would be the end of the brand, and they know better than that. So they were sampling the market. Let's try the Macan. That's sort of a sacrificial car. Let's try the Boxster. It's a fun car. It does us well, but it's kind of sacrificial. We can sample the market there. But we don't dare touch the 911. That's sacrilege if they go pure electric on the 911. Now that said, they're going hybrid, and there's the 911Ts, and they're trying some of the hybrid drivetrains. Even on the new turbo, they're going with electric turbochargers, and they're trying a little bit of that hybrid drive. But they're integrating it slowly. But many of their other models, they're trying to bring on an electric drive, and they're finding out the hard way that profitability's not there. Primarily because competing with Chinese market as well as tariffs, there was a short period of time where Porsche was actually debating relocating and manufacturing some of their cars, SUVs, on US soil and utilizing possibly some of the other refacilitating with some of the other plants that say are creating Volkswagens and beyond. But Porsche is now realizing that for us to stay in business, we're going to have to try to meet the buyers in the middle. And what does that look like? Okay, while we need to still continue developing this electric technology, they realize that the vast majority of Porsche buyers are looking for internal combustion vehicles. So now is the way it looks, as it stands today, for the sake of, the profit margins, for sake of being competitive and realizing as well as what some of their peers are doing, Mercedes, BMW, that they can't totally give up. I mean, BMW's already said that they're not going to give up, and they're going to reinvest in their Turbo 6s. They're going to reinvest in their 4-cylinders. They're going to reinvest even in their 4.4 twin-turbo V8s. And now while they might hybridize some of that, they're going to continue developing better emissions controls on some of their internal combustion vehicles. So BMW's realizing that. Mercedes realized, and they're starting to figure out the hard way, that they're bringing back their V8s because those ridiculous trashy little 4-cylinder turbo hybrid engines, that 2-liter that they were trying to replace in their C-Class AMG that used to have a twin turbo 4-liter engine, and now they switch it to a 2-liter 4 with a big hybrid boost. They realized really quickly how much the loyalists really mean to the brand, and getting rid of the V8s and replacing with a 4-cylinder is destroying Mercedes as we see today. So Mercedes and BMW are recognizing that internal combustion engine has a huge part to play. Porsche is realizing that as well, as so is Volkswagen. Have you seen Volkswagen, the ID4? They can't give those away. They're incentivizing them to the extreme because a lot of these EVs are just not selling. And while there's always going to be a segment of the market looking to get into an electric vehicle, and the fact remains is unless something drastic changes, those EU7 regulations are going to hold all of these European manufacturers to the fire. The point is, until that point, they could go out of business sooner or later. And Porsche is screaming that this market needs to be aware of what's going on. And Porsche, for example, are losing their profitability by sticking to the original game plan of fully investing into the electric market. As a matter of fact, their Mission E a decade ago was something that showed and showcased that they have the potential to build something that was, futuristic, electric, but all of that has pretty much been put on hold. These newfound electric vehicles, these hybrid, these hypercars, even Porsche wanted to come out with something that was, more EV on the hypercar space, and something that was likely going to replace, the 918 Spyders and beyond. But they realized that, wait a minute, we better pump the brakes on that because nobody's really interested, or the interest is very lukewarm. So Porsche, sales plunge, stock prices plunge, and as a result, they're retracting. You definitely want to check out my other video right there where I really dive into this a little bit more about how Porsche sales are down in the toilet. Definitely check out that video. I get a lot more into detail. Hope to see each and every one of you real soon, everybody. Thanks. Bye-bye.